He will need it with eating. That's why I'm wrapped up.
Well,
Turn the lights off in a minute.
Have you got your collar felt for for putting eating on too much?
Keith always used to come in, put his back hand on radiator. They'll be all right. They've just been on holiday, haven't they, Stan and Keith?
Yeah. Lanzarote for a week, yeah. It'll have to be a big sun to burn them bodies, won't it? On the side. How to clear the beach in 5 minutes, eh? Jesus.
How's the ankle, Sharpie?
Better than it was before.
Beware of those cobbled streets.
Yeah.
Sharpie, walk me through it. I mean, no pun intended.
Basically, I was just right hungry. So instead of going to sandwich shop, I just went to Chippy instead. So walking out Chippy, and I wish it was a good. I wish it were a good story. So I was just walking down Cobble Street, and then I just fell over myself, and I just heard that, and then I couldn't walk.
And then you couldn't walk, right? Well,
how did you get home, Sharpie?
You are?
How did you get home?
How did I get home? My mum picked me up.
Fair enough.
Makes you wonder how Victorians got on, Sharpie, doesn't it?
Yes and no.
Fair enough.
I once went over. You think that bad, Sharpie? I once went over on my ankle at Todd Bay an hour before a second team game, right? And you know when you where changing rooms are, and then there's that little drive.
Yeah.
Well, there's like a little embankment, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well, we're piss balling around in dressing room as we all do. Came out today, and I had my back to the pitch, and I was probably telling someone where to go or whatever, having laughed, and I was going backwards down that embankment, and it was a little bit more steeper than what I thought, and I fell over and tumbled down. I went over on my ankle, and I was supposed to be on my battery. I ended up having to bat 11.
Oh, rough.
Well, it works. I got raped done off Stan, and I'm a grown bloke. I'm in my mid-20s, and I got a proper finger wagging bollocking off both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what here?
Gordon, send more house to save the house.
Hello and welcome to the Housecast, Lowerhouse's official podcast. We have an excellent episode for you this evening with some different guests and some slightly different topic than usual. We also have a new co-host on tonight who will be presenting lots of episodes in the future as well. And that's Gav Shields. How are you, Gav?
I'm okay, thank you, Joe. Nice to see you.
Good. Have you been busy?
Yeah, same old.
Cracking.
Going up turf, having a few pints with lads, keeping out of mischief, you know how it is.
Yeah, I always make reference to this when you say you've been on the turf, of your half-time think tank episodes with Stan.
Well, we've got as far now as of him understanding what formations are, how many players each team have, and what colour Burnley playing. So we're getting there. It's going to be a long way, but we'll get there, pal.
Yeah, steady progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Baby steps. Yeah. I think we call it.
Shape of the ball next week.
I think he's got it up his jumper, I think.
And tonight's episode, we're going to be discussing the APP, which is the Advanced Performance Programme at the Cricket Club, which essentially picks the best players at the club with an idea of moving them, fast-tracking them into the first team where possible. And we've got 4 players tonight from the APP who we're going to have a chat with and discuss all things APP. So I'll introduce them all now. First, we've got George Durkin. How are you, George?
Yeah, good, thank you. Nice to see you.
And always good to see you, George. Been busy?
Yeah, very busy at work. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah. How's cricket going?
Yeah, good, thank you. Doing APP. No, we're going to Stoneyhurst on Thursday nights, doing a bit of Lancs League on Saturdays as well, so it's going all right. Yeah.
Fantastic. Good stuff. Our next guest is Henri Cottam. How are you, Hennes?
All right, thank you, Joe. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Not too bad. How's cricket been going for you?
All right, so far. Not had many sessions. Done a bit of cricket padding and stuff like that with my dad, but other than that, not much really.
It's fair enough. It's far too cold to be doing anything like that, I think.
Yeah.
But nearly the season, so we'll see. Joe Sharpe is our next guest. How are you, Sharpie?
Yeah, I'm all right, Joe. I'm all right.
Good, excellent. What have you been up to?
Like as George said, just Stonyhurst on Thursdays, a bit of Lancs League on the Saturday.
Excellent, good stuff. Keeping you busy, so that's cracking. And our final guest is Tom Yorke-Robinson. How are you, Tom?
Not bad, thanks. You all right?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. You're dialing in up from very far away in Greenmount. How's your cricket been going?
It's been all right. Got Lancs League with these on Thursdays, and then got a bit of extra training as well with Lancs and that. So
Excellent. It's cracking. And before we go on to the APP stuff, you've all mentioned Lancashire League nets. Does anybody want to have a quick, brief chat about that and tell us what that's about and how you've been getting on?
Yeah, it's been good. Going all right.
Good. Excellent. Georgie?
Yeah, it's been going all right, yeah. So it's at Quags on a Saturday, so it's not too bad. Keeps you busy, doesn't it? Keeps you ticking over before the season, so can't complain, really. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's with the very famous Nigel Brown keeping an eye over proceedings. So I'm sure you'll all be doing very well. So, Gav, we'll talk about the APP tonight.
Yeah, mainly. We spoke about it, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago? A quick get together, didn't we? And it's something that I've heard at the cricket club for the last couple of years, whilst I've been in conversation and the APP this, and when we were all down watching the football, and I saw the young lad running around, and I heard one or two people saying, what's going on there? And obviously I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know a heck of a lot. And I thought, well, there'll be a lot of members who hear the phrase APP. They won't really understand what it's about, what it is, why we do it. So I thought it might be a worthwhile idea just to do an episode on it and just try and get it out there and perhaps explain, what it is, why the club do it, who's on it, what do we hope to get from it, etc., etc. So really, the purpose of the podcast, I think, really is to just get more information out there so the members of the club and the listeners really understand what it's about, really, and understand what the club are trying to achieve. And these young lads are as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the... Sometimes I think the APP can come across as some kind of like classified programme that, like the CIA run that nobody really knows about. And we don't tell anybody about. We don't tell anybody what we do. It's on a black site and, no one sees what's happening. We always sort of welcome people to come and have a look and see what everybody's up to, and it's a chance to see, the players of the future.
Yeah.
And that's a really good thing, I think.
Absolutely. So if we kick it off then, so I think the players obviously, will obviously speak to yourself about it, because you were one of the, you were in the think tank originally, weren't we, at the origins of it, and so if we can speak to you about it, and then we'll speak to Matthew as the MD, to get the club take on it, and and how that went, and then speak to these fine young chaps and see what they've got to say about it. So firstly, Joe, if you can just sort of explain to us all, basically, what are the origins of the APP, why you felt it were sort of so important, how did it get off the ground, how does it work, what does it look like, what's it designed to do, what's the end game, what does it want to achieve?
So I don't know if the lads on this call actually know why it started, but essentially, when I went into the first team in 2010. Yeah. 2009, 2010. And then all the way up to 2015, we had this practically the same team for those 5 or 6 years, which you had a nucleus of players of, Charlie Cottam and Blaise and Finchy. And then you had some younger players like me and Johnny Whitehead and Matt Walker and Paddy. Ben obviously was a massive part of the team as well. And then when he got to 2015, it was the first time that we'd sort of experienced any players leaving. Hawkey left, and he was a massive part of that team as well. And Ben left, so they both left to pro. And then the year after, Matt Walker and Johnny left, and there was a bit of turnover. And what we actually wanted to do with it was say, these players are leaving after a period of time. And because you've got a settled team, there's potentially a bit of a block, of people being able to come through. So it was the kind of idea to come up with a kind of programme to help what we saw as the best young cricketers at the club as a kind of way into the first team. So from a coaching point of view, how could we fast track their progress so then they still loved playing cricket, but they had a route into the first team, which all these players do on this call. So we designed that. It took about a year and a half to design the full programme and then get funding from the club. And essentially we try and make it as kind of professional as possible. So we have a head coach that plans all the sessions. We have kind of specific sessions each week. Each of the players has, specific goals that they want to achieve, whether that is something technical or, just trying to create some kind of legacy, I guess. And essentially that's what we're trying to do. We want to try and get these players to be fantastic lower house cricketers. If they go even further, that's brilliant. But as a kind of starting point, if these lads can get into the first team, which, I'm pretty convinced that they'll play quite a big part this year, I would say, and not just sort of filling in either. I think they'll play some really important parts, very similar to when my group came into the first team just over 10 years ago.
Good stuff. So that's the background to it. So then how did it develop then from an idea amongst you three to then making it happen? Did you have to get in front of a committee or? Yeah,
so, Henri will probably remember, we used to have a lot of meetings at his house. Probably a weekly meeting at his house, going through different things with Charlie to make sure it made sense, and then we could actually put it in front of the committee. So we wrote briefings to explain the costs of the programme, getting different coaches in, equipment. We wrote handbooks to explain how our vision of the programme, how it would work, how it fits into the ethos of the club. Because there'd been nothing like it before, actually. Some clubs have, academies and that kind of thing. But we actually wanted to go one step further. And I think that's where we actually wanted it to sit and actually try and add some value to the club. Not just another coaching session for these lads, but how can we make them even better cricketers than they already are? So it was quite a lengthy process, a lot of writing, a lot of kind of thinking, and then coming up with a reasonable proposal that was achievable, but also ambitious enough as well, that it would get the best out of it.
Right, so talk us through the famous meeting then. So in the club I saw it, and you will end up in front of the bait crowd here, or?
Yeah, so we actually got in front of the committee. We presented them with all the different handbooks. I'd spelt Lowerhouse wrong on the first page.
It's cricket, it's not English, is it?
No, absolutely. I think it said
program, is it?
Exactly, Lowerhouse, I think it said, which was a new club we were creating. We explained everything and we went through how the club could fund it. And, it's a sizable contribution from the club. It's not just 20 quid here and 30 quid there. It's a really big investment from the club. And I'd like to think it makes a difference. And in that meeting, we had everyone there, actually. So the whole of the committee, a lot of the coaches were there as well. So our head coach, Nigel, was there. And we presented it. And thankfully, it got through. And then we started player selection.
And what year was that, Joe?
So I think that was 2016.
With a view to start in 2017.
Yeah, so we either started in the November of 2016 or the January of 2017. I can't quite remember, but it's around that time. Yeah.
Good stuff. So you presented to the committee. Things clearly went well. And how long did it take the think tank to come back to you and with a decision to say, yeah, we want to back you?
It was actually on the day. So we went through the whole process. And actually, do you know, the biggest, one of the kind of best things that we heard from it was not, that this was a really well thought out program, which it is, and it's getting the best out of all the different, getting the best out of these young players. But it was that they said they really wished that David Wren had been able to see it.
Absolutely.
And that actually meant more to us, I think, than any amount of money that they would back it with.
Absolutely. And I echo that completely. So how many players were selected for the first intake in 2017?
We wanted it to be really kind of specific and selective, actually, rather than specific. But after initial discussions with Stan, who wanted about 30 players on it, we got it down to about 12, I think, from memory, which is a sort of manageable number. And our first session was at Spirit of Sport.
Okay.
I can remember the session now. We did batting against spin, moving our feet, using different shots to sweep the ball. We did some diving catching and some fielding that Charlie ran. And that was the first iteration of the APP, and as it built from there.
Brilliant. Okay, so thanks for that, Joe. So we've heard now from Joe Martin as to the origins of the APP, how it came about and presented it to the committee. So if we can just bring Matthew Stansfield in now, obviously the MD of the club. Thanks for joining us, Matthew.
No problem, Gavin. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Have you been all right?
Yeah, keeping well. Just getting ready for the season now.
Absolutely.
Getting closer every day.
Absolutely, mate, absolutely. So, as you know, tonight's episode's all about the APP, the Advanced Performance Programme. Got the young lads on, to talk to them and to talk to Joe about it. So, Joe's given us a very quick sort of explanation there and a bit of a story as to how it came about. And now I'm just really interested to get your take on it because obviously the group present to you and the committee. Now, we're an amateur club, and I don't need to tell you that every pound is precious. So what I'm asking from you really is to explain what made it so important to you guys that you felt that you just had to support it and that it was a good idea.
Well, it's a good question, Gavin. So obviously the thing that the club's been built on probably for the last 15 maybe 18 years has been the youth section of the club and bringing players through. So the the tail end of our playing careers, we started to get a lot of junior players coming into the teams, and there was an influx of players of varying standards. Some of them that very good, some of them that have gone on to achieve great things in the club and in the Lancashire League. So to the tail end of our careers, Gav, had the likes of Ben, Orkey, Paddy, who were starting to make waves in the teams that we played in, and obviously then progressed into the first team. We then had in 2011, or the year of 2011, what you would class as the sort of golden generation of that youth setup. So like Man United have, effectively our class of '92 was the group that came through in 2011, and they created a fantastic first team that for a few years, until things got broken up a little bit by people going pro in and people taking other opportunities, but they dominated the league. And then I suppose you could argue that we've remained successful in the period since. We've had Lancashire Cups, we've had Worsley Cups and things like that. But obviously when this was presented to us, the idea was that we had to try and take the best of our youth section and give them that little bit of an extra push. So give them more of an insight into what it would be like if they got into a first class academy. But equally, if they weren't going to make it to that level, ultimately, give them a better grounding in being the very best that they can be at league cricket. And we put a lot of money into junior cricket, and it just felt right that we focus a little bit on trying to harness the very best of the talent. So we deal with all the inclusion and we deal with getting kids involved in participation, but maybe we'll just spend a few pounds trying to harness the very best and give our very best the opportunity. And it's great today to see that, I think this morning or yesterday morning, Liberty's flown out to Dubai with Lancashire, and she was obviously one of the first people that came into the APP setup.
Absolutely. Obviously, we'll all be watching with great interest and giving our best wishes to Liv. Going forward, is this, obviously it is an ongoing project, but is it just something that you'll keep an eye on year after year, or?
Yeah, and I think year on year it's developed. It's moved away a little bit from where it was at its outset, and I think year on year the premise of it and the idea behind it gets a little bit better. And I think that ultimately our aim, you hear people say, will Lowerhouse ever produce a James Anderson? Well, no one else has ever produced a James Anderson. So why are we suddenly going to produce one when the club down the road happened to produce one 20 years ago? So you've got to be really realistic. But what I would hope is that what we get out of that APP setup is a first class cricketer ultimately. And if once we've got a first class cricketer, can we then get somebody that maybe goes on and gets international honours or stretches it further? So that's got to be the aim. And like I say, and if the people that we put through that programme happen to fall short of that, then hopefully we're getting fantastic league cricketers out of them.
So moving that on to the next step then. As a club, obviously, as we mentioned earlier, every pound is precious. Are you and the committee setting targets for the APP where you expect to see results, i.e., you want to see a certain amount of first team cricketers who have come through the APP scheme to judge that as a success? Otherwise, it could be argued, what are we spending that money for? Is that is that a fair question, or?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think it will be harsh of us to set specific targets and specific sort of expectations. And the reason why I say that is because amateur cricket is, by its very nature, or can be by its very nature, a little bit transient, and people move around and people move on, don't they?
Yeah.
So we might have some fantastic players that are part of that scheme that are with us at the moment that might not progress to be first team players because they move on to different opportunities. Now, hopefully, one of the benefits of having the scheme in place is that it assists greatly in retaining those players, because those players can see that we're investing in them and their future, and they hopefully repay a little bit of loyalty to what's put into them by staying and being that good player for us if they're not able to make it in the first class game or beyond. At the same time, obviously, it would be remiss for me to say that we don't have to make sure that we are getting returns on what we're spending, and I think that we will expect ultimately to see results, but I don't think we'll set specific measures. So I think there's going to be opportunities this year in the first team for some of the lads. We saw Sharpe played towards the back end of last year. Henri and Tom were in about it at various different stages of the season, weren't they? George was sort of in it the previous season, but just didn't quite hit his straps last year, but then finished very strongly in the second team, which was great to see, and hopefully takes that through into the first team, into the second team, and then on into the first team this year. So I think the answer to your question is, Gav, we have expectations of it, but we don't set specific targets of it because I think it would be unfair to do so.
Yeah, no, and that's fair enough, Matthew. I'm just trying to think of questions that the fellow members and listeners would have, really. Joe, have you got any thoughts on that? Any separate thoughts on that? Or as obviously being, one of the founder members of the APP, I was wondering if you've got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I think that Stan is right, actually, in saying that there is a lot of moves within amateur cricket. But one of the key points from the initial plan was actually that we want these cricketers to create some kind of legacy. actually. So if you look at the players in the first team now, such as Blaise and Charlie, Ben and Finchy, people like that, they have a legacy at this cricket club and in the league. People know who they are, and people don't remember what people have done at various clubs, but they remember if they scored 10,000 runs at one club or taken 500 wickets, or they performed particularly well in a Worsley Cup final, or they contributed to a league. And actually, that's what I think is the important thing. And it's easy for me to say that, actually, only ever playing at one club and having no interest of playing anywhere else. But at amateur level, surely that's what this is about, I would say. Can you create some kind of legacy for your cricket club to make it better than it was than when you started?
It's an interesting point, that, because if I say to you the name Keith Roscoe, you immediately think Rottenstall Cricket Club, don't you? But Keith started out at Bacup, spent his formative years there before moving to Rottenstall. Did a little bit of proing in between as well, I think, didn't he, at some point? But you would immediately think, and Rottenstall Cricket Club, because his legacy has been that of all the wickets he's taken, he's probably taken 90% plus of them for one club, hasn't he? Les has scored 100% of his runs for one club, hasn't he?
Absolutely.
And even looking around other guys in the league as well.
Thanks for answering that. Absolutely fantastic. So firstly, gents, we'll just go through and get a little bit of info from you, if that's all right. So, how did you all get involved in cricket? What are your first memories?
Mine was on a family holiday in Portugal. Me and my dad were watching another family play cricket. The guy's son actually played for Essex, so me and my dad thought we'd join in.
Excellent.
We're just having a bit of fun, and then this lad said, "Oh, your lad looks like he's got a decent eye for it." And Henri and a couple of other mates are down at Lowerhouse. Anyway, and then as soon as I got back, I went down to my first training session and never looked back since, really.
Really? So how old would you have been then, George?
9 or 10, I think.
Excellent.
Yeah, so...
And he was taller than me then, as well.
Everyone's taller than you, George. What about the rest of you? Sharpe, what about you, pal?
I remember when I was about 7 playing cricket in someone else's back garden. I told my mum and dad when I came back that I actually really enjoyed it, so I wanted to join. And obviously, when I was 7 or 8, joined Lowerhouse on my first training session, and just carried on playing through Lowerhouse. It took me here, so.
Henri, I think we know you, don't we? But go on.
Yeah, I must have been 3 or 4, and you can probably tell me where we were, but it was me, you, and my dad, Gav, playing cricket in some kind of like back street in, I can't remember what country it was, but I just remember loving it. And then my dad that I want to start up at Lowerhouse, because obviously I was down there every week because he was captain and everything like that. And do you remember where we were? Do you remember?
I'm just trying to think. Where would that have been? How old are you again, H? When were you born?
2004.
So it'd been 2007?
Something like that.
In someone's wedding?
Yeah, yeah.
Wedding?
Maybe, yeah.
2005, that.
I don't know.
Yeah, you had 2 good teachers anyway there. Bloody hell.
That's where he got his left-handed batting from, Gav.
Yeah.
And Tom, what about you, pal?
Well, I started at Greenmount, so I was at footy training, and all my mates wanted to go. Like, they were going to Greenmount after training. So I just told mum and dad that I wanted to go, and then mum was like, "Yeah, we can sort that out." And then I had a few sessions with Ben, and then Greenmount wasn't really working, so I decided to join Lowerhouse, and then just got so much better.
I remember when you were about to come, Tom, actually, we were on a pre-season game at Woodbank, and your mum was sat with Lindsay.
Yeah, I had a broken ankle, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. And I can remember discussing it. She just said, "He's going to come and play." And I thought, well, not with the ankle, it won't. But there we go. I mean, really, Tom, you're the only one here that doesn't quite have the same kind of lineage at the club. quite a few people here, Henri with Charlie, George and Dirks. Dirks was holding Blaise aloft in the 2004 final, I think. So what was it like coming from a different club?
It was actually really easy. Like, everyone was like so nice in that, so it just fit. It just worked. It just fit in.
So moving specifically on to the APP program, lads. Got a couple of questions here, really. But what I want sort of the listeners to sort of get an understanding of is, so we've heard Joe explain the origins of it and how it came about and what they wanted to get it. But in this bit, really, I want to try and get at the lads who are doing it. So what your experiences are of being on it. So firstly, if I could ask the group, do you feel as though your game has improved by being on the APP? If so, what parts of your game have improved? And have you seen any results in games, perhaps? Or is it a bit too soon for that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's massively improved. Like the game scenarios and then the actual training session is tougher than normal training. It's like more specific to you. So
right. Is it a more of a one-on-one?
Yeah, it's a more like specific to you than like the whole group is.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I can agree. Yeah, I can agree with that. I think that bringing all the different coaches in that they did as well, that all specialise in different things, helped people out who were interested in learning those different things that they were teaching, if that kind of makes sense.
What about you, Sharpe and H? What about you? What do you enjoy about being on the APP? What benefits has it meant to your games?
Well, yeah, it's just that it's extra training, isn't it? So obviously that's not going to do any harm to your game. It's going to enhance it, and it's definitely like made my batting miles better than it was before. Because I don't think I was very good at cricket before, and then joining the APP's actually just made me a miles better player in general.
What would you say it's given you more confidence?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%.
And how about you, Henri? What's your take on the APP? What benefits have you got from the sessions?
The benefit I've got from it is actually when you're out there in the middle, you have a further idea of what you want, what your best shots are, and what your strong points and weak points are, so you can utilize that, to try and win a game for your team. And like, I remember, I don't know if you remember this, George, back in like 2017 when we were first playing district, me and George had quite a decent partnership.
I remember, yeah.
That was because we were doing APP together every week and communicating and batting together, and it just helped us so much when we were out there in the middle. It kind of calmed us down a little bit. We knew what to do.
Yeah, mindset and a bit of a plan, didn't it? And from going through game scenarios and that to now thinking, right, we're actually in a game. Let's use that things that we've learned to try and win this game. So yeah, we're good.
What do you think about that feedback there? Is it, it's good to hear that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a damning indictment for my coach, and I coached Sharpe for a long time. And he said he was terrible. Those one-to-one sessions must have been a disaster. But no, I think the thing with us is obviously it's always I really enjoy watching these guys play cricket, and when they enjoy it, that's one of the other things. But I think one of the other things from it is the output that they get. So if there's, if cricket's a lot better if you're taking wickets and scoring runs, taking a brilliant catch or a brilliant stop or that kind of thing. So I think that the fact that they can take the stuff that they do in the APP into games is a fantastic thing. And I think, I don't know how you guys feel, but I certainly think it's kind of matured you as cricketers. And giving you, what do you think about that?
I can agree with that, yeah.
Because if you think back to, perhaps when you started, I mean, Henri and George, I think you were in the very first group, like cohorts on the APP, and Tom and Sharpe joined slightly later. Specific to George and Henri, how do you think the program's developed and sort of in line with your game as well? Quite a tough question, that. Sorry, Black Parky.
Well, yeah, as I was renowned for being a bit of a slogger back in the day, so I can relate that going from being a young kid just wanting to take the ball as far as I could and hard as I could to like trying to learn all the different proper shots and stuff like that. I can relate to that. Yeah, definitely.
Hennes?
I think it's definitely adapted and developed over time, because I remember back when it was just me and George, we'd sometimes there'd be an older net, and then there'd be us. Yeah. And sometimes we get sent over to this older net and just be totally scared of them and batting in there.
Yeah, I remember me and Henri used to be frightened of Yusuf and Marley, two players that used to be scared to death of going in batting against them. So, but no, you wouldn't bat an eyelid about going and batting in an older net. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah, well, I'd completely forgotten that. So, how old would you guys have been when in the first 20, one? You'd been 12 or 13, wouldn't you?
Yeah, 7, 7 year 8, something like that. And
obviously, Yusuf and Marley were a good 2 or 3 years older than you, and big lads, weren't they, as well? So
yeah.
But that's just like you now bowling at some of the others. Maybe not you, George, but Tom. With those floaty off spinners you've got. And Hennes, did you bowl spin at the first? Or were you bowling spin then, or were you bowling medium pace?
Yeah, I think it was just after me, George, and Sharpe went to a Gary Keedy masterclass spinning thing, and I think there was a lot of us that went there, and we all turned into spin bowlers because of that. And I think it was just after that the APP was made.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I think that's a really interesting point, that actually, you've got you and George now who are spinners, and you've got Sharpe, who was formerly a spinner.
Yeah.
Now
now just a batter, Joe. I won't really class me as a bowler or an all-rounder, really.
I don't know, Sharpe. After watching on Thursday night, I think you've taken on like an enforcer-style role with the number of bouncers you were bowling at people.
Unintentionally.
And obviously, Tom, you're a medium-pace bowler. So I think for me, Gav will probably touch on it a little bit later, but you guys have already spoken about it. Is the kind of specific sessions that are sort of aligned to your games. If the fact that some of you are batters, some of you bowl spin, some of you are all rounders. How do you think that fits in with your preparation and training?
Just getting all the different kinds of people that you're going to come up against is just key to scoring many runs in any cricket. If you get used to, like, say spin, I struggled against Henri to start with, but then it's got easier because you face them more.
Oh, harsh.
Learning the scenarios as well. So what you do at training, and taking it into a game, and when you know that you're in that scenario, you think, right, I've learned this in training. I can try and put it into what I'm doing now in the middle. So
that's a great point, that, George. Because I was going to bring that up, because there's a few times when I've been down at the club and the seconds have been at home. Me and Marcus will be lapping, and we have said a few times how noticeable it is. How every young lad who's batting seems to have a plan, and that might sound really obvious, but believe you me, it isn't. It isn't very common, isn't that? And what I mean by that is, there might be a change of bowling, and spinner might come on, and straight away, you guys have a plan. You have a game plan as to how you're going to deal with that, and that never used to be the case. I mean, when I was your age and I was playing at second 11, that just wasn't the case at all. You really had to learn on the job. So it's really noticeable, and people just walking around the ground can see that. And obviously, your parents that watch you every week, they'll have noticed a great improvement as well. But I just wanted to piggyback up back at George's point there, because it is noticeable, how equipped you are to deal with, certain circumstances. And it's not going to work every time, because you're young lads and we're amateurs at the end of the day, and they're allowed to bowl well. But at least you've got a plan of how you want to combat it, and you've got a bit of confidence, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? we're getting to indoor nets have started, and before we know it, the friendlies will be coming round. And I don't know about you, like, you used to hate friendlies, but although you used to potentially go to some different new grounds and tea room might be yes. So that were always good. That were always good. But more importantly, what are your sort of goals for the season? You know, what are your plans for the season? What are your hopes for the season? Or do you not set them? You know, because either way is fine. You know, so if you want to just let us know what your hopes and goals and aspirations are for the season.
I'd like to improve the more runs than I scored last year. I didn't have a very good year last year, second to be honest. I scored some decent runs at thirds and fourths, but to try and score a lot more runs in twos and maybe play for a couple of games in first team as well and try my best to get into that. So that'll be mine. That'll be my goal this year.
Excellent, George. What are you, Tom?
I need to score runs for twos. It wasn't a great season, but yeah, just twos and then hopefully play a lot of first team games. So, yeah.
Okay. What about you, Paul?
Similar to Tom, really. I just want to push first team cricket, you know, and I think there's a couple of spaces opening up. Hopefully, a couple of us can take them. Get through there.
Good stuff. And while I'm talking to you, would it Italy when we went to Beneducci's wedding when we were playing cricket?
I think that was a bit late.
We're a bit late.
I think I was already playing cricket there. It might have been Santorini with Blez and Lindsay's, potentially.
That had been 2010. Blez and Lindsay's wedding.
I struggle to remember what I did yesterday. Let's get back. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get back on track. Sharpe, what about you, pal? What are your goals for the season, for the coming season, mate?
Similar to the rest of the lads, obviously kick on and progress into that first team, but also stop getting out in the 80s and 70s and actually kick on and get an 100.
Excellent.
So
Not a bad problem to have, that, Sharpe. Keep getting out in the 70s. That's a bad problem to have, mate.
I mean, when I get in the 70s and 80s, obviously, because I've never get 100, do I? So
no, fair play. And one question I wanted to ask you all as well, because obviously you've all got experience of the APP programme, and as Joe's touched on, some have been on it right from the inception. Have you got any sort of ideas on how it could be improved, perhaps? You know, is there anything that you think it'd be good if we could do this?
More sessions.
More sessions.
Mine would probably be trying to, instead of like, nets are good obviously to get practicing, but try and get some practice out on the middle, because in wickets are completely different to what they are in the nets, and it's just good to try and just get used to that really, and just get yourself accustomed to the conditions really.
That's a great shout. Yeah, that's a great shout. I agree with that 100%, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with that. We did a couple of training games towards the back end of the season last year out in the middle, and they were really enjoyable. And obviously, it's a lot more realistic to what you'd be batting out in middle to rather than the nets, if that makes sense. So I can agree with that.
Yeah, and I would imagine, Tom, just to ask you about that, is you know, sort of the main bowler, if you will, out of the group, the bowler. It must be difficult to bowl and, you know, work on specific things in the nets because your run up isn't there, and whereas it's a completely different feel out in the middle, isn't it? But does that make any difference to you, or?
Well, you can still work on things, but it's a lot different on the pitch. Like you might bowl a certain length in the nets, which is carrying through, but then you go out onto the pitch, it just sits up and you can hit it everywhere.
Bang. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just more practice in it. Get out in the middle.
Absolutely. Well, let's give. We'll have to get on to Eton, Joe. He don't do it anyway, does he? He'll have a spare hour. He can do that. He don't do it a lot, does he?
Do you know? I think one of the things for you guys this year, obviously, I'm at every session, and I kind of see what you're up to. I think one of the things for you guys this year is volume, actually. So the number of, all within reason to make sure you're not injured or anything like that, but the number of balls you bowl, the number of throwdowns or hits that you have, the number of catches you take, the number of stops you do, during the week, I think if that can increase it even more again, I think you'll be in a really good position. And I have no bearing on selection or anything like that. I'm one of the least important people at the club. But, I really do see an opportunity for you guys this year in the first team. Obviously, I was extremely sad that Johnny left. He's one of my best friends. But at the same time, I was when they said it at the meeting that he was going, I was also really excited because it gives one of you guys a chance to come in and have a proper go. And if you can grasp that and take that chance, you'll be in that team for a good amount of time, I think.
Also, as well, Joe, selection is just not only open to the guys on the APP programme.
Absolutely not.
Selection. That's the beauty of the game, isn't it? It's open to anybody in that 11. If anybody sets off the season and scores runs just because they're not on the APP program, that's pretty much irrelevant. Your currency is runs and wickets, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So to anybody listening to this who might not be on the APP program, don't worry about that. And just because you're not at this moment in time doesn't mean that you won't be. You might not be in the future, or that there isn't a pathway into moving up the pyramid into higher teams, because everybody, develops at different speeds and at ages, especially at cricket.
Definitely.
So I think that's a really important thing to mention. But yeah, it's been great to hear from you chaps, and I think you spoke very well. It's been great to hear.
I have a couple more questions. Some are around the APP, and others about some of the stuff that you did in the first team last year, or did with the first team. So the first one from me is everybody when they play cricket has some really difficult times and tough moments, when either you're not scoring runs or you're not taking wickets, or in my case, you're dropping lots of catches. How do you think the APP helps in those kind of situations? Because sometimes you just need to take a step away, whereas other times you want to keep working on it and keep getting better. So how do you think the APP helps in those moments?
I think that it's more of a mental battle, really, sometimes more than technique or anything like that. Like sometimes when you're struggling, it's giving yourself the confidence to go out there and make a change, where APP, you kind of have them talks from you and Paddy and Francois, encouraging us and giving us motivation, kind of to just give us that little bit of a boost and making us feel better about it.
I think I was struggling a bit last year, so I think just to take a break and do a session, do an APP session and give you a bit of confidence back and tell you that you are doing all right and it will come soon. And I think that helps, yeah, definitely.
So there, you're sort of saying that the APP, you feel, is giving you sort of a tool set to be able to go out and achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that, yeah.
I mean, you said, Tom, about you wanted to score more runs in the twos this year, I guess. How do you think you're gonna do that? I guess without giving anything away. If anybody else is listening.
It's just the mindset of like when I don't have a good start, it's just like, I need a run, I need this, I need that. But really, it just needs to stay in, and then the runs will eventually come. So
yeah, I mean, because you're quite famous at the club, right, for sort of scoring some very big runs. You've had double hundreds and hundreds at your age group level cricket, and you're in your Lancashire setup now. How do you think you can transfer those kinds of performance? I'm not saying you need to be scoring double hundreds every week in the second team, but how do you? It would be absolutely marvellous if you could. But how do you think you can translate those across? How do you think you can get that to, that kind of consistency, I guess?
It's the mental side. Like when juniors, I know I can do it. I know it's like I've proven it, so it's just there. But then seniors, I've not really like proven that I can consistently do anything. So I think if I get a few 50s or whatever, then I can really push on with it.
I think what probably my second to last question actually is, so this one's for Sharpe. Obviously you came into the second team late last year, but then you had an incredible run of performances. How?
Absolutely.
And again, I don't want to say, there's no kind, everything that you've sort of achieved is on you. It's about how you react to certain situations, isn't it? But how do you think the APP helped you? Again, I'm not saying that it's all on the APP. And how do you think you're gonna rock up this year? How do you think you don't want to feel all the pressure? That's the thing, to think that you need to score the same runs again. Although again, it would be nice.
Yeah, going back to what Henri said earlier, it's identifying your strengths and weaknesses. So I was trying to make my weaknesses not a liability as such. So trying to determine what I was actually good at and trying to use them more in games than actually putting myself in pressurized situations and fall back what I'm good at. So creating a bit of a safety net and foundation of realizing that I've done this in training before certainly helped. So yeah,
that's a good answer. That's a great answer. Yeah. I don't think I'd give that answer at your age, mate. To be honest, absolutely fair play to you. That's but that's the good thing about the APP, isn't it? You're going through all these scenarios at training, so that when you experience them in a game, it's not the first time you've come across it.
I was just going to say, like the scenario stuff, it just makes you used to what it's going to be like in the middle, if that makes sense. It gives you almost the preparation to know that if you do come in that situation, you know how to deal with it properly. You know what I mean? So,
well, that's brilliant. And like you say, the performances that that you have all done, the performances that you've all put in this last year and the end of the season before have all shown that it's working, isn't it? So no, that's fantastic.
I think last question is to Hennes, is that it's based on the 2020 campaign last year, actually, where you had some really fantastic performances, a couple of fourthers, I think, with the ball. So firstly, do you see you doing that again this year in the 2020s? And do you think you can then get that across into the first team in the 50 over games?
Yeah, I think me and Tom both, we bought together really, didn't we, in the first team, the T20s, and we both kind of gave it our all and showed that we deserve to be there and we deserve to have the ball. And I think this year, I'm hoping I can do the same thing, but if not, then just prove myself in the second team again. Just making sure that I'm getting the runs and the wickets and just everything to make sure that I get that chance. And then when you get that chance, it's about taking it, isn't it? Really,
yeah.
About taking your chances.
Well, I'm backing you all this year, so and Henry, you'll have to play for a long time so I can get some more stumpings. After last year, I need a left arm spinner. Yeah. Right, excellent. Gav,
is there anything else that you'd like to talk about, or?
I'd say thanks to the APP guys.
Everyone bar Joe.
No, and thank you for coming, guys. It's really appreciated, and all your efforts at the APP as well, because it makes life very easy with your attitude and level of skill as well. So thank you very much.
And from myself, just before you go, I've been very, very impressed with the way that you've spoken this evening and the answers that you've given. It has been really impressive, and I'm sure that the listeners and the members will think exactly the same. So from me, thank you very much for giving us an hour of your time tonight. It's been greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
On that. Cheers.
Gordon, send Morehouse to save the house.